I hadn't planned on being outside at 6 in the morning, but there I was, barefoot on the porch, coffee cooling in my hand, staring at her window like I was waiting for something to move. Her blinds shifted first. Then her voice. "You're awake early." It came low, a little husky, like she hadn't spoken to anyone yet that day. I swallowed before answering. Couldn't sleep without saying good morning. Silence stretched. The street was too quiet for August, the kind of quiet where every sound, sparrows in the gutter, a dog 2 blocks down, felt louder than it should. She leaned on the frame, one elbow resting against it, and in that moment I realized I had no plan for what to say next. She wasn't my neighbor exactly, she was my neighbor's sister. Mid-40s, I guessed. Sharp jawline, hair pulled into a loose knot like she hadn't bothered to check if it looked neat. She had that same thing every older person who unsettles me seems to have, a kind of stillness. Like she wasn't waiting on me to fill the silence. Like she'd outwait me easily. I shifted my mug between hands. "Didn't mean to bother you," I said. "You're not." She looked down the street, not at me. "It's just early." There was something careful about her tone, neutral, but not dismissive. I nodded, even though she wasn't looking, and for a second I thought about going back inside, sparing us both the awkwardness. But I didn't move. Instead, I asked, "You always up this early?" Her lips curved, not quite a smile. "Some nights I don't sleep much." Something about the way she said it landed heavier than I expected. I took a sip, the coffee already cold, and asked the question before I could stop myself. "Bad dreams?" Her eyes flicked to me then, fast, direct, and then away. She didn't answer. Just pressed her thumb against the edge of the window frame like she was deciding whether to say more. I felt stupid for pushing. "Sorry, I know," she cut in, quiet but firm. "It's fine. Just, sometimes it's easier not to talk about it." I nodded again, this time slower. My chest tightened with the kind of tension I couldn't name. For a while we stayed like that, me on my porch steps, her framed in the half-open blinds, the early morning light turning everything pale. It should have been nothing, just a neighbor's sister making polite small talk. But it wasn't nothing. Not the way her voice kept dipping softer. Not the way I couldn't stop glancing at the shape of her fingers against the sill. Finally, she broke the quiet. "You shouldn't sit out here barefoot. You'll catch cold." I laughed under my breath, rubbing the back of my neck. "You sound like my mom." Her gaze snapped back to me, this time steady, unblinking. "Maybe don't say that." Heat flushed my face. "Sorry. I didn't mean, I know." She softened, finally letting the corner of her mouth rise. The smallest smile, but it lingered. And that should have been the end of it. Just 2 people standing in the wrong place at the right time, trading small words in a too quiet morning. But then she let the blinds slide open wider and rested both hands on the sill, leaning forward slightly. Her hair fell loose around her face, and I couldn't tell if it was the light or something else that made her look younger for a second. She tilted her head. "So, what are you really doing out here?" I froze, the mug trembling just enough that I tightened my grip to keep from spilling. Because the truth, the one I couldn't say out loud, was that I had been waiting for her window. And for the first time, I wasn't sure she didn't already know. I told myself it was coincidence when I saw her again that afternoon. I'd been helping her brother patch up the fence that separated our yards, but when he ducked out to grab tools, she came out carrying 2 glasses of iced tea. Loose gray t-shirt, no makeup, hair still up in that same half-knot. I thought I'd imagine how striking she looked in the morning light, but no. Seeing her in daylight only made it worse. "Fence looks sturdy," she said, handing me a glass. Her fingers brushed mine, just a second too long. Or maybe I wanted it to be. "Trying my best," I muttered. She leaned against the post, arms folded. The fence wasn't even halfway fixed, but I couldn't stop looking at her instead of the boards. Her voice dropped quieter. It's strange, you know. Being back here. In this house. I glanced up. Back? You didn't live here? She shook her head. Not really. I grew up here, sure. But I left a long time ago. I only came back because, well... She stopped, eyes narrowing at something far away, like the memory hurt too much to put into words. I didn't push, though my chest tightened. That hesitation, the way her throat bobbed when she swallowed, it wasn't casual. Something raw sat behind it. She sighed. My divorce just finalized last month. My brother thought, maybe being here would help. Her laugh was thin, almost brittle. I don't know if it does. I nodded, not trusting myself to say anything. Divorce. The word hit harder than it should. I'd suspected she was older, but now the gap between us stretched wide, like a line neither of us was supposed to cross. And yet, my eyes kept tracing the way sunlight slid over her collarbone, how her hand tapped the glass like she didn't know what else to do with it. I forced myself to focus on the fence. Guess it's not easy. Starting over. She tilted her head, studying me. You sound older than you are. I let out a dry laugh. Or maybe I'm just not good at knowing what to say. For the first time, she smiled, really smiled. Not guarded, not half-hidden. It softened her whole face, and I had to look away before I said something stupid. But her next words made it worse. You make it easier, though. Talking. My pulse jumped. I shifted the hammer in my hand, gripping it tighter. That's good. She let the silence hang a moment too long, eyes resting on me like she was waiting for something. Then she stepped closer, so close I could smell the faint trace of soap on her skin, and laid her palm against the top of the post, inches from mine. Would you mind staying a little longer? Her tone was casual, but her eyes said otherwise. The hammer slipped from my grip, clattering against the grass. And in that split second, before either of us bent to pick it up, I almost said it. The truth. That I hadn't been able to stop thinking about her since that morning. But I didn't. Not yet. We ended up in her kitchen, the fence long forgotten. She set the 2 glasses of tea on the counter and slid one toward me. The place smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and something warm, like bread, though the oven was cold. Everything looked too neat, like she'd been scrubbing at surfaces to keep herself from thinking. I tried not to watch her move. Tried not to notice the way her shirt hung loose at the shoulders, or how her hand trembled just slightly when she pushed hair out of her face. She caught me staring. What? Nothing. I swallowed. Just, your kitchen looks different than I remember. She smirked. Different how? I hesitated. Cleaner. Quieter. Like nobody lives here. Her laugh was soft, but her eyes dropped. That's not far off. The words sat heavy between us. I wanted to fill the silence, to ask more, but I didn't. My chest ached with the weight of not saying things. She leaned against the counter, folding her arms like she needed something to hold herself together. You ever have that feeling where the life you build just crumbles, and you don't even recognize yourself in the pieces? I froze. She wasn't talking to me, not really. She was talking out loud, to the room, to the empty space where someone else used to be. I think about it all the time, I said quietly before I could stop myself. Her head lifted, and she studied me like she wasn't sure if I was being serious. My heart thudded too hard, but I didn't look away. Then it happened, small, stupid, but enough. She reached for her glass, and her fingers brushed mine again. Only this time neither of us moved away. The contact lingered, deliberate in its hesitation. My breath hitched. And that's when her phone buzzed. She jerked back like the counter burned her. Snatching it up, she glanced at the screen, sighed, and silenced the call without answering. Sorry, she muttered too fast. It's just my ex. Again. The word ex tightened my chest. I didn't ask what he wanted. I didn't want to know. I tried to step back, to put space between us, but my heel hit the cabinet. She was still close, too close, and I could feel the heat of her presence even without touching. This is complicated, I said, forcing a laugh that sounded wrong even to me. Her eyes flicked to mine. Steady, searching. Do you want to leave? The question hung sharp, almost staring me. I should have said yes. I should have picked up the glass, thanked her for the tea, and walked out the door before the line between us blurred any further. But instead, my voice came out lower, quieter. Not really. Her lips parted, the smallest intake of breath, and I thought, just for a moment, she might close the space between us. Then a knock rattled the front door. We both froze. Neither of us moved to answer. The knock came again, sharper this time. She shot me a look, then pressed a finger to her lips before moving to the door. I stayed rooted in place, pulse hammering. She cracked it open. A man's voice drifted in, her brother, asking if she'd seen the box of nails. Relief rushed through me, but it didn't ease the tension. She answered quickly, sent him off with some excuse, and shut the door. When she turned back, she leaned against it, exhaling hard. He always forgets something. I managed a shaky laugh. Saved by the nails. She smirked faintly, but it didn't last. Her expression shifted, something heavier settling in. She stepped away from the door, crossing back toward the counter where I still stood, my hands shoved deep in my pockets like that might stop them from shaking. You know this isn't smart, she said finally. The words landed flat and sharp, but her voice trembled just enough to betray her. I know, I admitted. My throat felt dry. But I'm still here. Her eyes caught mine, and for a moment neither of us blinked. The silence filled with things neither of us was brave enough to say out loud. Finally, she moved closer, close enough that I could smell the citrus of her soap again, see the faint lines near her eyes that only made her look more human. More real. You're too young for this, she whispered. I don't feel young. That made her laugh, soft, sad, like she wanted to believe me but couldn't. You don't know what I've been through. Then tell me, I said, almost too fast. Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, she pressed her palm flat against the counter, steadying herself. I lost 15 years to a man who never saw me. Do you understand what that does to someone? I swallowed, my chest tight. I see you. Her head snapped toward me, like the words cut through her before she was ready. She stared, searching, like she was trying to decide if I meant it. I did. Too much. The air between us stretched thin, dangerous. My hand twitched at my side, wanting to reach for her, but I held back, nails digging into my palm. She stepped in, so close her shoulder brushed mine. Not an accident. My breath caught. This shouldn't happen, she murmured. But it already is. Silence followed, thick, heavy, charged. Neither of us moved, though the space between us was barely a breath now. Her eyes flicked down, then up again, meeting mine. She didn't smile. Didn't frown. Just looked. Tell me, she whispered, voice breaking almost imperceptibly. What are you really doing here? The question cracked open something in me, but the words tangled in my throat. I didn't answer. And in that silence, the longest, most dangerous silence, I realized neither of us was turning away. Her question, what are you really doing here, still hung between us when I finally forced words out. I was waiting for your window this morning, I admitted. My voice cracked, lower than I meant. I didn't even know why. I just couldn't sleep unless I saw you. Her expression shifted, something between shock and recognition. She turned away, gripping the edge of the counter so hard her knuckles paled. You shouldn't have said that, she whispered. But it's true. She shook her head, as if fighting herself. You don't know what you're doing. I stepped closer before I could stop myself. I know exactly what I'm doing. She turned then, and her eyes, shining, wet, hit me harder than any word could. For the first time, I saw how breakable she looked beneath all the composure. You remind me of someone, she said quietly. And I can't decide if that's comforting or cruel. My stomach dropped. Someone? My first love, she said, voice thin. When I was barely older than you. He was everything. And I left him behind. I've spent 20 years pretending I didn't regret it. I froze. My heart hammered so hard I thought she could hear it. Because I knew. My uncle, I said before I could swallow the words back. You're talking about my uncle, aren't you? Her eyes widened. Silence swallowed the room. He used to talk about you. I went on, my throat dry. Not often. But when he did, he never looked the same. Always quieter. Like the memory still hurt. She pressed a hand to her mouth, stumbling back a step. God, she breathed. I didn't realize. Neither of us moved. The air felt too heavy, too full of ghosts. Suddenly, the attraction between us wasn't just forbidden because of age, or because she was my neighbor's sister. It was tangled with something older, something neither of us could rewrite, her past with my uncle. I should have stepped away then. Should have let the weight of it crush whatever was building. But I couldn't. Instead, I whispered, Is that why you can't look at me sometimes? Because I remind you of him? Her hand trembled against her mouth. She didn't answer right away. Finally, she lowered it and said, voice breaking, Yes. And that terrifies me. My chest ached. Then maybe you're not looking at the past. Maybe you're just seeing me. Her eyes locked on mine again, no retreat this time, no careful distance. Just raw, unguarded truth. And then a voice called from outside, her brother shouting something about dinner. The spell snapped, both of us jolting like we'd been caught. But even as her shoulders tensed, her eyes stayed fixed on me. And in that stare I knew nothing would ever be the same. Dinner at her brother's should have ended it. I could have left, walked back across the yard, swallowed everything I wanted to say, and pretended the last 24 hours hadn't happened. But I didn't. Instead, when the sun set and the voices from next door finally quieted, I found myself standing at her back door. I didn't knock at first. Just stood there, breathing shallow, torn between leaving and crossing the line. She opened it before I decided. Her hair was down now, softer, and her eyes looked tired, like she hadn't stopped fighting with herself since the kitchen. She didn't say anything. Just stepped aside so I could come in. We sat at the table, 2 glasses of untouched water between us. The silence was unbearable. Finally, I broke it. I shouldn't feel this way about you. Her eyes flicked to mine, sharp and aching. And I shouldn't let you sit here. But we both did anyway. I laughed, bitter and low. So what now? She pressed her palms together, resting her chin against them. I've been here before, she said softly. When I was young, I wanted something so badly, I ignored every reason it was wrong. And I lost it. Lost him. Her voice trembled. I can't make that mistake again. The weight in my chest was unbearable. I'm not him. Her gaze met mine, unflinching. But you carry the echo of him. Do you understand how confusing that is for me? I didn't answer right away. My hand tightened against the glass until I thought it might shatter. Finally, I forced the words out. I don't care if I remind you of him. I want you to see me. Just me. Something in her broke then. Her eyes filled, not with tears exactly, but with the kind of wetness that comes when you've been holding too much in for too long. She pushed back her chair, stood, and paced toward the counter. I should tell you to leave, she whispered. Then tell me. She turned, and her face was a storm. Regret, longing, fear, all colliding. I can't. I stood too, the chair scraping hard against the floor. Then stop running from this. She stared at me, frozen, until finally, she stepped forward. The distance collapsed. Her hand reached for my arm, fingers trembling as they closed around my sleeve. It wasn't a kiss. Not yet. Just her touch, deliberate, lingering, sending a shock through me that stole my breath. This doesn't end well, she said, voice raw. Maybe it doesn't end at all, I whispered back. We stood there in the charged quiet, her hand on my arm, my pulse racing under her touch. Neither of us moved further, either pulled away. It wasn't resolution, not really. But it was truth. And in that silence, for the first time, either of us lied about what we wanted. Her hand still rested on my arm, a fragile anchor in the storm we built around ourselves. For a moment, neither of us moved, afraid that if we did, the fragile truth between us might splinter. Then she spoke, quiet, almost to herself. I don't know how we got here. I swallowed. We were already here. We just stopped pretending. Her laugh was soft, tired, but real. You make it sound simple. Maybe it is, I said. My voice shook, but I meant it. I don't care about the years between us. I don't care who I remind you of. I just don't want to spend my days watching your window and wondering what could have been. Her eyes searched mine like she was testing every word, trying to find cracks. But there weren't any. Not this time. Something in her shifted. She stepped closer slowly, as though afraid she might startle me. And then her forehead pressed against mine, her breath uneven. No grand kiss, no cinematic rush, just closeness. Just the weight of finally allowing it. When she pulled back, she looked steadier, like she'd made peace with something. You make me feel alive again, she admitted, voice barely audible. That scares me. But it also saves me. And that was it. The thing she'd been circling around, the confession buried under every pause and silence. I didn't answer with words. I let my hand cover hers, holding it tight enough to promise I wasn't going anywhere. Outside, the streetlights buzzed, and her brother's house sat quiet. The world was ordinary again, but we weren't. Later, when I finally left, the air was cool, and for the first time in months I didn't feel restless. Because something had shifted. Not solved, not polished, but real. Looking back at her window, I realized the truth. This wasn't about replacing the past. It was about claiming the present. And maybe that was enough. Sometimes life gives us second chances disguised as mistakes. Sometimes what feels forbidden is just fear holding us back. Age, regret, the ghosts of the past, they only matter if we let them. What matters is whether two people see each other, clearly, in the present. And for us, we did. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?